Senator from Arizona.
Ask unanimous consent to address the senators if in morning business for as much time as I may consume.
Without objection.
Quite often, on numerous occasions, I've come to this floor, the Senate, to talk about the ongoing tragedy of Syria, not in the belief that any action may be taken of any real impact, although it's always been my hope and prayer, but because my conscience dictates that I come to the floor of the Senate and discuss one of the great and unfortunate and shameful chapters in our history. Last February, I came to the floor to appeal to the conscience of my colleagues and fellow citizens about the mass atrocities that the Assad regime is perpetuating in Syria. I brought with me at that time a series of gruesome images that documented the horrors the Assad regime has committed against political prisoners in its jails across the country. Those images were smuggled out of the country by Caesar, a Syrian military policeman who risked his life and the lives of his family and friends to show the world the real face of human suffering in Syria today. At the time, I had hoped that those images would cry out to our national conscience and compel our great nation to help end the suffering and genocide of the Syrian people. How could anyone look at those pictures and not press for immediate accountability and an end to those mass atrocities? In the months since those images were first made public, U.S. and European investigators have pored over the images and concluded that not only are these images genuine, but they're evidence of an industrial-scale campaign by the Assad regime against its political opponents. According to the State Department, these photographs are evidence of systematic atrocities not seen since Hitler's Nazi regime exterminated millions during World War II. Stephen Rapp, the State Department's ambassador at large for war crimes, stated that, and I quote, "This is solid evidence of the kind of machinery of cruel death that we haven't seen, frankly, since the Nazis. It's shocking to me," unquote. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, after a briefing to the UN Security Council members, stated, and I quote, "The gruesome images of corpses bearing marks of starvation, strangulation, and beatings, and today's chilling briefing indicate that the Assad regime has carried out systematic, widespread, and industrial killing." Despite the statements from these and other senior officials, the administration has yet to finish its investigation. Perhaps when the administration does complete its forensic analysis of the evidence provided by Caesar, President Obama will decide that it's finally time to take action in Syria and prevent the continuation of mass atrocities that, according to his presidential study directive on mass atrocities, is, quote, "a core national security interest and a core moral responsibility of the United States." I have to tell my colleagues, I'm not hopeful. In the time that the investigation to prove what we all know to be true has been underway, approximately 40,000 more people have died. Another 1 million people have been forced from their homes, and over half of Syria's population is now believed to be in dire need of food, water, and medicine. The Assad regime continues to bomb northern Syria using crude cluster munitions known as barrel bombs, with the sole purpose of terrorizing and killing as many people as possible when indiscriminately dropped from Syrian government aircraft on schools, bakeries, and mosques. It continues to raze entire neighborhoods for no military purpose whatsoever, simply as a form of collective punishment of Syrian civilians. It continues its, quote, "surrender or starve" famine campaign, starving people to death by denying entire neighborhoods any access to food or water. And just last month, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which has been tasked with destroying Syria's chemical stockpiles, announced there is credible evidence that toxic chemicals are still being used in a systematic manner in Syria. Indeed, this kind of inhuman cruelty is a pattern of behavior with the Syrian government. As early as August 2011, A damning 22-page report was issued by the United Nations Human Rights Office, which concluded that Syrian government forces had committed crimes against humanity by carrying out summary executions, torturing prisoners, and harming children, the evidence of which we now see clearly in those images.